Why do the two main communities in Northern Ireland often take such different views on Israel and Palestine? What's the root cause?
Okay, well, that's the million dollar question, Victor. So there is a view out there, and people would say, oh, well, it's all very shallow, and none of them could point to either Israel or Ramallah on a map. And if you asked them who the president of the Palestinian Authority was, they'd probably not be able to tell you, or that the Protestant support for Israel is only a knee-jerk response to the nationalist support for the Palestinians. So that there is that view that it's all very shallow. I don't hold it. I think it actually goes deeper, and I think what we're seeing around the world is how the issue of Israel goes to people's identities. And that's always been true of Northern Ireland, and I think you can see it increasingly true in other parts of the world as well. The great, tremendous support there is for Israel within, for instance, the Iranian community of Iranian exiles, which I've witnessed firsthand on the streets of London. So Northern Ireland no longer seems to me to be so different. But what's I believe is at the heart of it, and I think, I have my ideas to share with you. So on the Protestant and Unionist side, you do have a faith connection amongst many Protestants. Northern Ireland is still it's more secular than it was when I was growing up, but it's still very much a church-going society to a greater extent than other parts, perhaps, of the UK. And for many Protestants, particularly evangelicals, Israel is important to their faith. The return of the Jewish people to the land of Israel is something that they see as prophetic. It is a theme in the Bible, that's absolutely correct, of exile and return. And therefore they see the return of the Jewish people to the land as being something of biblical significance. Others may look more to the future and see the return of the Jewish people as being like a prophetic time clock. For them, the return of Jesus, the second coming, for them it seems imminent because of the Jewish people being back in the land. But that's a prophetic milestone for them. And that would account for a lot of our support, as I've said, comes from that kind of evangelical community. But even within that community, there are different beliefs and different doctrines and different perspectives on the place of Israel in their own Christian faith. For many, it's a desire to discover more about the Hebrew roots of their Jewish faith. Jesus was a Jew, and they would like to know more about the world in which he lived. So there's all different factors there. There are also, I think, more secular reasons why many Unionists feel an affinity for Israel. They see it as a small country that was repeatedly threatened with destruction, and they draw that analogy with Northern Ireland. They say Northern Ireland was faced with a terrorist campaign by the IRA with the aim of destroying it, just as in their worldview, that there's a parallel there with Israel because of the PLO going back, seeking to destroy Israel. So they feel that their backs are to the wall to the same degree. Also, I think there's a sense within the Unionist community that just as the world and the media doesn't understand Israel and seems to be driven by an agenda which is hostile to Israel, so they would say that the media and the world is hostile to them and has never understood the Unionist position. So I think that's another whole area of shared feeling. If you look at the nationalist and Republican side, well, there is a history there. And I remember as a child in Belfast, there was a mural which depicted one struggle, it said, and it had a Palestinian with an Armalite alongside an IRA volunteer with an Armalite. And that was a depiction of this sense that they are part of a revolutionary movement, anti-imperialist, that took practical expression with training in Lebanon, with arms being smuggled in. We know from Libya, Semtex, and serious gun running from the Middle East. So that there was this affinity of shared revolutionary cause between the IRA and the Palestinians. Now, sympathy for the Palestinians, I would say, goes beyond that in the Catholic community, because there are other Catholics who may not have been IRA supporters in any respect, but they still feel sympathy towards the Palestinians. And that goes, I think, to the heart of their identity, that they feel just as they were displaced by a Protestant plantation and they were, made to be, in their mind, second-class citizens in their own country, displaced geographically during the plantation many centuries ago, but it's still a sentiment there. So they think that, in their view, the Palestinians have experienced a similar process, and therefore there is an affinity there. And so that there are, I think, deeper factors than just trying to provoke each other with flags and gestures like that. I think it does go to the heart of identity of both communities to quite a large degree. Now, does that mean that they're all experts on the Arab-Israel conflict? No, and I think one of our responsibilities of Northern Ireland Friends of Israel is education, to expose people to different perspectives, even within Israel. So we've brought over to Northern Ireland, for instance, a Palestinian Christian from Bethlehem to speak to a Friends of Israel audience. Now, what she had to say was very difficult. We heard about how her childhood friend had been killed in a shooting incident between the IDF and local Palestinian terror groups. But we also heard something, Vitor, which I think was really important to hear. She pointed out that 2 of her uncles had been murdered by Palestinians. She was a Christian, and the people who killed her uncles came from groups called the Tanzim. They're armed groups within Palestinian society. And what she said was, when her uncles were murdered, the Christian community of Bethlehem were told, do not speak to the media. If you speak to the media about what's happened, there will be an impact on you. This was coming from the PLO, from Fatah. So that was an insight to the world of Palestinian Christians that we offered our Friends of Israel supporters. We've had members of the Bedouin community in Israel speak to us. We've had trade union representatives come and speak to us. Ambassadors giving us a more official line regarding Israel. We've had various ambassadors come to Belfast to speak to our supporters. So education, I think, to deepen people's understanding. This is not a straightforward. It's not like a football match where you take sides. There's human life at stake here. It is a conflict. I think that is important as well. As a group, we try to educate and bring different perspectives to the attention of both our supporters, and we will always try to engage beyond our own immediate supporters and bring people to meet, for instance, elected representatives from different political parties, because we think that's very important as well as an educational process.